Hi, this is Sensei Bill Cole, and I'm going to go into a little bit more serious topic today. The reason you should study martial arts. So, a little bit about me. I live in Tennessee. That's where I'm at. And I have friends, coworkers, other people that wonder why I study things like Krav Maga, why I study Kendo, why I practice these things. Because in Tennessee, we have relaxed gun laws. You only have to do a background check here. There's no waiting period on firearms here. At 18, you can buy a rifle or shotgun. At 21, a pistol. And I've got plenty of firearms. So people always ask me, why do you want to learn how to fight hand to hand when you got a gun? Just pack your gun, you'll be good. Well, I have two problems with that mentality. Well, I'm going to go into here. So, not everybody is in an area where guns are freely available like here. This is very relaxed here in Tennessee. A person is not God. No one is God or invincible. I don't care who you are. And people have a sense of false confidence because they got a firearm. Firearms are a mechanical device. So you can take something like this, which is a .357 Magnum revolver, or something like this, which is a .44. A shotgun, rifle, any of these things. And it makes a person feel powerful holding it in their hand. But as with any firearm, it has parts that can break, wear out. Parts will have to be replaced. I had a Polish P64 9mm that had a rusted part inside when you take it apart to clean it. Super simple to take apart and put back together, but the part fell off with little to no effort, and I had to go to a gunsmith. And plus, a firearm uses a chemical reaction within the cartridges. It consists of a bullet, of casing, powder, and primer. And as the ammunition ages, the chemical reaction can weaken within the cartridges. Other things that can happen with firearms are malfunctions. Probably the most dangerous malfunction is, got a shell here. So this is a .38 Special plus P. So here's your bullet. Here, the cartridge casing, primer. This whole assembly is not a bullet, it's a cartridge. This bullet will be ejected from the casing and get lodged somewhere in the barrel. Now, with modern ammunition, this bullet will expand to meet the rifling inside. You're not going to get this thing out if you have a squib load, which is where the bullet partially ejects from the cartridge and stays in the barrel. It's going to seal the barrel. So what you're going to try to do is pull the trigger again. And you're going to have another round behind a lodged bullet in your barrel. What that's going to do is it's going to seal the barrel from the other end. And what happens there is all that pressure that's being blocked from the muzzle has to go somewhere. Your barrel will explode. With a handgun, it's not as bad normally. But you take a rifle where your hand is under the barrel. If that bullet's lodged in front of your hand, the barrel's going to explode where your hand's at. Another problem you come up with firearms is called a hang fire. New, good ammunition does not normally have this problem, especially with the quality of your powder nowadays. But ammunition that's older or a defective batch of ammunition, what can happen here is the primer ignites or primer gets struck. The primer gets struck. And it takes several seconds before the powder ignites. Or it might have a second or 2 second delay before the propellant ignites. Now, this will do two things. It'll throw your accuracy off if you fire the gun and it takes 2 seconds before ignition. It can be dangerous if it takes, let's say it takes 6 seconds between shots. You got a revolver. Make sure this is unloaded. So as you see, this is unloaded. You see a double action revolver. When you pull the trigger, it rotates the cylinder. Double action or single action, you can reduce that trigger pull. The problem you will have with this, if you have a 5-second hang fire and it doesn't ignite, you pull the trigger, the second cartridge ignites. But this cylinder here has the round that fell to fire. And that can ignite and propel the bullet here, damaging your frame. And it can be very bad for you. So if you had a semi-automatic with a hammer fired, all you would have to do if you had a hang fire is cock the hammer back and pull the trigger, and sometimes the second striking will fire it. So the rule of thumb with a firearm is if you have a hang fire, before you cycle your next round, hold it downrange in a safe direction for 10 seconds before you do away with your shell. But what I'm going to say is 10 seconds can mean your life. Other malfunctions can be jamming normally with semi-automatics. You can have the firearm stovepipe. Those are normally simple to clear. You can also have, for semi-automatic rifles, you can have special kinds of jams. Sometimes the rounds will get jammed 2 or 3 trying to go into the chamber at once. And some of those jams take a lot of work to clear. So what we're talking about is people are putting their safety, basing their entire safety and security on a mechanical device. The second thing about guns is availability. Not everywhere can you buy a firearm. In some states you have a waiting period. Some states you have to have special permits to obtain a firearm of certain kinds. So your lack of availability of firearms. So if you went to the black market to obtain a firearm, you would be at risk of, let's say the guy pretending to sell guns as a law enforcement member who's doing a sting operation. How can you trust somebody on the black market? You really can't. And if you obtain something that is illegal to use to protect yourself with, then you get in more trouble if you have to use it. The third and final disadvantage of firearms I'm going to talk about is application. So there's a drill called the twirler drill. And the twirler drill is from 21 feet. A determined attacker can reach you in 1.5 seconds or less. The average human response time to this is 3 seconds. So if your gun's in your holster, it's going to take you 3 seconds to respond to draw. They're on you in half that time, so you never had the gun out of the holster. We're talking about surprise attacks. And the twirler drill encourages you, if you're rushed like that, not to go for your weapon, but to get out of the path of the knife first. Either block the knife, get behind the attacker, and shove the attacker, creating distance, then draw. So if you're in a situation from 10 feet away and someone just comes at you, you're going to be wasting time trying to reach for a holster. When you need to trip them up, you need to push them away somehow. To give yourself distance, you need to draw and defend yourself. So the saying, don't bring a knife to a gunfight, can prove opposite. It's easy for somebody that's determined to do harm to overpower somebody that depends solely on a firearm if that firearm's in a pocket, holster, or whatnot. But around here, the mentality is that having a gun makes you God, which it doesn't. So imagine if you're in a place around the world that you can't get guns, or they're heavily restricted. So what you've got is your hands, or maybe a knife or something to defend yourself with. The cats are getting to me. But if you don't know hand to hand, then you're focused on getting the first punch in, getting the first stab in. It really boils down to the strength of you versus your opponent, or your skill levels. Now, you may be stronger than the other person and be able to deal with them. You might not. But good self-defense should not rely on the strength of the defender. Martial arts gives you capabilities and techniques that you wouldn't have otherwise. That now, instead of focusing on strength against an attacker, we're focusing on techniques that use their weight against them. That would use literally their momentum against them. Or wrist locks, joint locks, ways to break falls. All kinds of ways that against somebody that doesn't know martial arts, you have an edge against that person, which is what martial arts are supposed to do. Now, what kind of martial arts should you avoid for self-defense? Many would argue with me on this. Ninjitsu is not so much... There is a martial art related to ninjitsu called Bujinkan. But ninjitsu is martial arts. It's also a set of survival skills. It's like survivalism, too. So it includes more than martial arts. Martial arts to stay away from would be, in its current form, Tai Chi. Tai Chi can be very effective in self-defense, but the way it's taught is for meditation, is taught for wellness, and they don't really teach the techniques at speed or pressure testing that would be necessary to take down an attacker. So a lot of your martial arts have been watered down over time, to the point now they look like boxing matches in tournaments. They reduce the danger level partly for safety, because here in America what happens is we have a lawsuit happy culture. So to make it safer for those studying the martial art, they will remove techniques that might be dangerous, that could help you if you're attacked. Or they're just generally watered down to make it more sportsmanlike. So your best martial arts to learn are the martial arts in their traditional, original form. Ones that are designed to do damage. So Krav Maga, which is what I'm going to get a belt test tonight in, at 6 o'clock, was developed from necessity. You want to focus on martial arts that were developed out of necessity. The martial art of Krav Maga was developed for the Israeli military in the 1940s. Because in 1947, Israel became a country. The British left, and they had enemies all over the place. Some of their early military didn't even have guns. They had bottles, beer bottles and stuff. Or surplus rifles, anything they could get. Everybody around them attacked. But if you're in a situation where you don't have a firearm, they had to develop a system that would give them a hand-to-hand combat edge against their foes. Hence, Krav Maga was introduced to the Israeli military. It originated back in the 30s. Hold on a second, I'll be right back. It originated in the 1930s in Eastern Europe when the Nazis were taking over Europe to assist the Jewish people who were under attack from the Nazis in protecting themselves against people that were trying to kill them. So it was developed as a way to ensure the survival of a people that were being killed in mass. They introduced the guy that invented it, and I forget his name, he introduced it to the Israeli military when Israel was founded for their country. So they would have a way to fight hand to hand if they didn't have a gun against gun wielding and knife wielding foes. And let's see. Later on, the Israeli military developed the Uzi submachine gun, but it fires a 9mm pistol round. It's a close-range weapon. At the range of a pistol, if that's what you got for a weapon, it's going to wind up hand-to-hand eventually because it's a fully automatic weapon that can expend its entire magazine in 3 seconds. So the fighting is going to wind up hand-to-hand. So Krav Maga was literally developed for a modern fighting force to be used against people wielding weapons of the modern age. Aikido is a good one. Aikido was developed to allow you to use joint locks, wrist locks, to throw your opponent. In today's form, it's designed not to harm your attacker. But if you have to go damaging, you can simply just carry through a wrist break all the way. Karate is an excellent self-defense martial art. It was designed during a time when people couldn't have weapons where it was invented. It gave people a way to fight with their hands to defend themselves with. Their hands and feet. Traditionally, it also included things like bow staffs, other things. So these are 3 good self-defense systems for dealing with the modern world. Wing Chun is another good one. Kung Fu. If you watch Ip Man and read up on Ip Man, this guy would fight against multiple people at once. They were attacking at once. He taught Bruce Lee. And so the proof's in the pudding there that Kung Fu works. But stay away from martial arts that have been watered down for just competition use. If you're wanting to learn how to protect yourself, Krav Maga is one of the best things to learn. MMA is another one. Stuff that is contact or full contact and is pressure tested is the best stuff to get into for self-defense. But never rely on one tool to save your life. And I think there's a man, if you ever read the Book of 5 Rings, Miyamoto Musashi, he had a section on weapons. He's the greatest samurai swordsman who ever lived. He never lost a duel. But he said in his book to appreciate the strengths and weaknesses of all weapons. So that philosophy would say to not favor one weapon over another one, but consider the benefits that each weapon, including your hands, has. Don't discard one weapon because it's useless in one situation and not another one, but to consider and employ the advantages of everything at your disposal. That's a little bit of my philosophy on defense. Hope it was helpful. I'm going to get ready for my Krav Maga class, but this is Sensei Bill Cole signing out, hoping you have a great evening.